On the planet Gargantua 4, the term Colossus was an understatement. This was a world where gravity was high but the life was even higher. The dominant features of the landscape weren't the mountains or the canyons, they were the world walkers. These were biological entities so massive that they defied the standard laws of biology. A single world walker was 5 miles long and 2 miles high. Their skin was a thick tectonic layer of organic stone and hyperdense mineral deposits. When they moved, the seismic sensors on the other side of the planet registered an earthquake. When they breathed, they created weather patterns. The native aliens, the Venerators, did not just live alongside these beasts, they worshipped them. They built their cities and temples directly onto the backs of the world walkers. To the Venerators, these were the great gods of war. When the Venerators went to battle, they didn't need fleets of ships. They simply steered their living gods toward the enemy. Nothing survived the footstep of a world walker. No fortress could withstand the weight of a god. For centuries, the Venerators had been the terrors of their sector. They viewed the rest of the galaxy as ants, tiny buzzing insects that lived on the dead ground. When the human 5th Industrial Reclamation Fleet arrived, seeking the rare titanium glass that only grew within the mineral-rich scales of the world walkers, the Venerators prepared for a holy war. The ants have come to bite the mountain, High Priest Kroll clicked, looking down from his temple perched on the shoulder of a beast named the Earthbreaker. They bring their tiny metal ships. They bring their little lasers. They do not understand that they are fighting the Earth itself. One step and their pride will be crushed into the dust. The Venerators watched as the human fleet approached. The humans didn't stay in orbit to fire beams. They descended. Hundreds of blocky, rusted industrial rig ships swarmed the Earthbreaker like a cloud of angry hornets. Kroll laughed. Let the Sky Archers fire. Send the beasts into a rage. Let the great god trample them. The Venerators fired their obsidian spears and energy bows. But the humans didn't fire back with lasers. They didn't try to kill the beast. Target's heart rate is steady, Commander Vance, the driller Sterling reported from the bridge of the flagship the Iron Hand. He's a big boy. All right boys, he looks a bit stressed. Let's give him his medicine. Deploy the yellow fog. The human ships didn't release bombs. They opened massive valves, releasing thousands of tons of a thick neon yellow vapor. It wasn't poison. It was an industrial-strength, synthetic sedative, originally designed to calm enraged biomechanical engines on human factory worlds. The Earthbreaker took a massive breath, inhaling enough of the gas to fill a stadium. Up in the temple, Kroll felt the beast shudder. The ground didn't shake with rage, it began to tilt. The Earthbreaker's massive, mountain-sized head began to droop. Its 6 legs, each the size of a city, started to buckle. What is this magic? Kroll shrieked, clutching his altar as the temple tilted 40 degrees. The god is falling asleep. With a sound like the world splitting in half, the Earthbreaker collapsed. It didn't die, it simply sat down in the mud, entering a deep, chemically induced coma. The shockwave of the beast hitting the ground leveled every forest for 50 miles. God is down, Sterling said, checking his watch. We've got a 6-hour window before he starts to stir. Let's get to work. I want the drills hot in 10 minutes. The human fleet didn't land on the ground. They landed on the beast. Massive, multi-ton harpoons were fired into the god's hide, securing the rig ships to the creature's back. Thousands of human Titan tamers, in heavy, grease-stained power suits, swarmed out. They weren't carrying rifles. They were carrying industrial drills, plasma cutters, and conveyor belts. Kroll and the Venerator warriors rushed out of their temples, ready to defend their deity with their lives. They found the humans already working. A human team was busy bolting a massive hydraulic crane directly into the sacred mineral scales of the beast's spine. Stop! Kroll screamed, brandishing his energy spear. You defile the holy body. You are crawling on a god. A human engineer, covered in soot and wearing a hard hat with a cracked visor, looked up from his welding torch. He wiped a smudge of oil off his face and looked at the high priest with utter indifference. I don't know about holy, pal, the engineer grunted over the scream of a nearby drill. But I do know this god of yours has about 10 million tons of high-grade glass in his shoulder blades. Now stand back. This is a construction zone. You got a hard hat? No. Then move it. The Venerators tried to fight, but they were warriors, not industrial workers. The humans had turned the god of war into a job site. They set up localized gravity anchors that made it impossible for the aliens to move. They sprayed quickset sealant over the temple doors, trapping the priests inside their own holy places. The gospel of momentum had taken a new, terrifying form. Industrial inevitability. For 6 hours the Earthbreaker wasn't a god. It was a quarry. The humans worked with a terrifying rhythmic efficiency. They didn't hate the beast. They didn't fear it. They simply saw it as a massive, unexploited resource. They drilled deep into the mineral-rich scales, extracting tons of titanium glass and loading it into the rig ships. "We've hit the quota," the foreman yelled. "Pack it up." He's starting to twitch. The Earthbreaker groaned, a sound like a tectonic plate shifting. Its massive eyes began to flutter. "All rigs disengage," Sterling ordered. "Retract the anchors. Let's get out of here before the mountain stands up." The human ships detached, their holds bulging with the riches of the god's hide. They ascended back into the clouds, leaving the beast behind. The Earthbreaker slowly stood up, shaking off the last of the yellow fog. It let out a roar that shattered the remaining windows in the Venerator temples. It was angry, it was confused, and it was missing several thousand tons of its own back. High Priest Kroll stood on his balcony, looking at the scarred, drilled-out pits where his god's divine scales used to be. The humans hadn't even stayed to fight him. They had treated his deity like a piece of rock, took what they wanted and left. "They did not even acknowledge our war," Kroll whispered, his faith shattered. "To them, our god is just a mine. We are not enemies. We are just obstacles in their way." The conquest of Gargantua IV wasn't a war of blood and glory. It was a war of labor and logistics. The Venerators tried to use their other world walkers to fight back, but the humans just brought more gas, more drills, and more ships. They turned the entire planet's pantheon into a series of rotating work shifts. Humanity had proven the ultimate industrial HFY truth. The universe is full of terrifying giants and living gods. But to a species that grew up digging holes in the ground and building towers to the stars, a god is just a big pile of material that hasn't been processed yet. We don't need to kill your giants. We'll just make them work for us. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. Gods don't work for free, but they work for us. That if you enjoyed this industrial conquest of the world walkers, hit that like button. Comment below. If you could mine a god, what resource would you look for? Subscribe for the next conquest of Saga 11, the Nightmare Pulse. The shift is over. The quota is met.